What is up, YouTube? I am Eric and you are watching Retro Video Game Pickups. In this video, we are talking about starting a Nintendo 64 collection with only $100. So if you like this video, go ahead and subscribe and hit that bell notification for more videos. With that being said, let's hop into it. Okay, so here it is 2020 and there is something going on that I'm not going to talk about because every time I bring it up, YouTube decides to demonetize my video and then I have to fight and it's just a pain. So we're not talking about any kind of disease or virus that may be outbroke just in 2020 that is keeping you in your homes because YouTube seems to think it's not a valid thing to talk about. So we're gonna skip over that and talk about starting a Nintendo 64 collection on $100. Now, why $100 and why I decided to do the Nintendo 64? There's a few reasons. I feel like $100 is a good starting point. If it was any more, you could kind of buy whatever you wanted. And if it was any less, you kind of would just get the console and not have any games. So I decided I think $100 is probably a great start for a Nintendo 64 console collection. So I wanted to talk about that just a little bit. I selected the 64 because the 64 has a ton of great games. Doesn't matter what genre you enjoy playing, you can probably find one or two games in that genre on the system that you will love. Also, I wanted to talk about this because this is a system that I personally love, and I think that people are really my age are really getting into or have been into, but they're getting back into it. So I think the prices are shifting a little bit up and down depending on what it is, and so I wanted to talk about that. Now, what I have gone and done is looked at sold comps or sold completed listings on Mercari. And I'm using Mercari because that's where I sell my games at. So I kind of wanted to gauge the market about where I would be selling or buying from. Now there's always other places like eBay or Gamestop or other stuff on the internet like that. But this is solely going to be based on Mercari and their prices. Now I'm going to show you guys up here in the corner the kind of the systems that either the system or the games that I saw that were sold within about a month, and so I'll try to average that cost and show you kind of where they were selling. Now I did think this was a fun thing to do because I mean, who doesn't like going out and starting game collections? Like, who doesn't like playing video games? If you're watching this channel and you don't like video games, I'm very confused. But I wanted to talk about what I would do for the $100, and so we're going to talk about that right now, and I'll show everything up here and let you guys know why I decided that.
Look at that. Let me see.
What's got these guys so excited?
Unbelievable.
Player's choice games for N64. Turok, Mario Kart, Wave Race, Star Fox.
Oh man.
Star Wars, Shadows of the Empire, Cruising USA, and Super Mario.
Think I'm in wrong.
Each one of these great games is just $39.95.
What's going on here?
And each one is a million seller. Just look for the Player's Choice logo.
Now first off, you gotta have the console. So I took half of that money. I said $50 was going towards a console with a controller and all the cords. And this is where it works out pretty well. Now here you guys can see that I was able to find the console with 2 controllers and 2 games, well, 3 games for $48 with free shipping, I believe. It doesn't show whenever you go to it, so I kind of didn't include shipping on any of this. So there's that fluctuation that if you get free shipping, that would be the price. So here we're looking at it. You got a console, you got the gray controller to go with it, but then you have that atomic purple controller, and then some 3 random games. I think they were all sports games, but I didn't really dig into the 3 random games. I will say look for bundles. Now bundles is going to reduce the cost of what you play per game. It's also probably going to reduce the price of the actual console. So I wanted to talk about that here before we got into the games. When you're out there looking, look for consoles with games. Like, I have a bunch of games. I want to say like 6 or 7 games here for you guys. And I thought this was a good talking point about that, because that would be perfect and what you guys need to know. But bundles are great, because if you find a bundle like this one that I'm talking about with an extra controller and 3 games, if you don't need those 3 games, you can go back on Mercari, take pictures and list them yourself and sell them. You can also do the same thing with that controller. So maybe I spent $48 on this, this bundle we're talking about, and I see that there's a controller that I don't need, and I don't want those 3 games. So what do? I list those 3 games for $15, and I list that controller for $15. I ship it out and sell it and make money to actually fund more of the system or the console collection if I want to. But what we're gonna do here is just say, okay, we spent $50 on the console, and it came with a controller and it came with the cords in order to play the system. Now what we're gonna do now is dig into the actual games themselves and see what I think you should pick up with that extra $50 that you have left over.
Look at what we're launching. Now for N64 and Game Boy Advance. Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 2. We're talking lots of new tricks and hundreds of insane new combos. There's even more courses, a park designer, and a dream team of skaters to choose from. Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 2 for N64 and Game Boy Advance. Rated E for everyone.
Okay, so that first game that I'm going to talk about here for the Nintendo 64 is a game that I personally love, and I played the crap out of it, and that is why I have added it to this list. And that is Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 2. Now, I looked at the prices, and they ranged from about $8 to $15. So I settled on about $10 for this game. Now, up here is a listing that actually has sold for $10, and it was about a month ago. So that means you could spend $10 on Mercari and end up getting this game if you're just patient. And so some of this stuff, you might see that game for $15, you might see it for $8, just depends on when it's listed and who's listing it and what condition it is. So I'm wanting all these games to be playable. Now, they don't have to be in a box condition, they just have to be playable. So when I say $10 for Tony Hawk's Pro Skater, I think that's a good deal. I think Tony Hawk's Pro Skater is a game that I would love to play, and I think this is a system that I think I loved it on the most, so that's why I have talked about it here and added it in.
You know how to use one of these?
GoldenEye. Load a rumble pack and see how it feels when 007 meets N64.
Okay, so we're going to talk about 3 types here, and we already talked about the low tier, and that was Tony Hawk's Pro Skater. I say low tier because of the price. It wasn't too expensive. I'm going to have a mid tier and then a higher tier just within that $50 budget. That way we can make sure we have enough money for the whole thing. So what we're talking about is a $15 game here, and that is GoldenEye 007. If you guys have played the Nintendo 64, you know what GoldenEye is all about, but I think this is a great game to add into the mix. GoldenEye is a system seller, in my opinion. If people are going to buy this system, I think that's one of the games that they're going to want to play and add to their collection, or at least not even have a collection, just have the game to play. And I went and looked through this, and I noticed there were prices that were all over the place for this one. It was about $12 to $20, and so I settled at $15 because that worked perfectly in this mid-tier for me, and I think it's still a game that is well worth spending that money on. So when I talk about GoldenEye, I think it's one of those games that's on the system that everyone loves, and it's amazing, but also it's not up in price with that Mario Party or Super Smash Brothers. It's not a $40 game, so I think that is where this fits in well, right here in this mid section. So let's go to the high tier and see what I ended up spending my money on. Okay, so we spent $10 on Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 2, we spent $15 on GoldenEye, and then we have a leftover of $25 after we spent $50 on the system as well. So what did I decide to spend $25 on when I was looking at the system? This was hard, and I had to make the decision. And I think this is a system that works well for this. And I have honorable mentions or games that you can swap out here towards the end. But these are 3 games that I would buy. And I think $25, this game is perfect for that. And that is Zelda Ocarina of Time. Now, I found a copy on Mercari for $25. And this one was much harder to find a game at $25. I saw 2 or 3 at $23, and most of the others were like $28 or $30, and so I waited till I could find this one, and it said 1 day ago there was one that sold for $25, so I said, hey, that fits perfectly into this section, so I'm gonna pick it. So, Ocarina of Time, you gotta have a Zelda game on your Nintendo 64. Now, this is just a starting point. I will go to some games that I think will swap in and out very well, but those are the 3 games that I think you should definitely work on if you have a budget of $50. That gets you a low tier game that's pretty cheap with Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 2. You've got a mid tier, which is decently cheap when you're talking about a game for the 64 at $15. GoldenEye is a good game that you should pick up. And then spending more money, you got GoldenEye, you got Zelda Ocarina of Time for $25. I think that is a great deal. And so wrapping this all up, spending $100, getting the console with a controller and all the cables and these 3 games, I think is very well. Now, I will state that if you found a bundle with those 3 games and the console, you could probably get it cheaper, but I was purely thinking of buying the console, then buying each separate game separately in order to get the games that you want to play, not just some random games. So let's talk about those games that I want to kind of throw in here that really work well with the system and I think could be swapped out for some.
Yo, listen up. We will not live in a two-dimensional world. We won't go in one direction or see where we can set. We will walk through walls. We will take a look around us. We will not be confined. We believe in the path of least limits.
We won't be told how to view the world.
We will experience true freedom. We will not compromise. We will live the game through our hands. We will be in control of something. We will change the system.
So these are all pretty much higher priced games, and so I wanted to talk about them briefly. Now the first one I'm going to talk about is Super Mario 64. That game is a game that I think you definitely should pick up if you are picking up the Nintendo 64. But at a budget of $100, that really could knock a dent out of your change that you have. So I think that game, it's about $30 for that game, so you can pick it up. I found this one for $29, and that was 5 days ago. That's pretty recent, so I wanted to talk about that. And then there's a few more games that I just want to tell you about. Mario Kart 64, yet again, another great game, but here we are spending another $30, which, like I said, is a big hit to your $100 budget. So I think you definitely want to think about that before you actually do that, because that could just definitely not be well worth it. And the next game we're talking about is Banjo-Kazooie. Now, I'm kind of talking about these next 2 games, and I think these next 2 games are great games for 3D platforming. Banjo-Kazooie is one of those. It was at about $22. I found one on Mercari that sold about 25 days ago, which fit into my within a month. So I think $22 is probably a good price for that game. And last but not least, we're talking about Donkey Kong 64. Those are 4 different games that I think you should be adding to your collection. At $25 for Donkey Kong though, you're definitely taking too much out of it. So I think you could rearrange this group a little bit. Maybe you pick up Donkey Kong and maybe you pick up Tony Hawk's Pro Skater and GoldenEye, or maybe you swap that out where you're getting Donkey Kong and like Super Mario World. Whatever it is, I think these are all games that you could swap in and out in order to save that money. So what I wanted to do in this video is present you guys with a real world scenario where these things are being bought and sold for that price. So this is really up to the market. So whenever I looked at all this stuff, I took screenshots and I showed them to you guys up here. And I wanted to show you guys that if you had $100, say you got $100 for your birthday, or you saved up $100, whatever, however you got the money, if you were wanting to only spend $100 but get a few games to start a game collection for the Nintendo 64, I think these games are ones that you definitely have to have. Now I know there are a ton of games that I didn't mention, but these are ones that I thought were well priced, not those $50 or $40 games to where you're getting one game, maybe the system. So I just wanted to give kind of a few games, and I think this is a well put together list. So if you guys have lists that you think would work better, comment down below and let me know. Say how much the games are, say what you would do if you had $100. So with that being said, I want to say thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe. Make sure you hit that bell notification because it lets you know when I post more videos, which is every Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday. But most importantly, I want to say thank you so much for watching and make sure you have a good day.